This is it. This is the one I've been building towards since the outline. Since part 1, when a man punched a wall and the wall didn't care. Since part 2, when a ghost woke up and started teaching. Since part 3, when an angel fell through a crack in reality and a shadow chose its own name. Since part 4, when the door opened and a man who had lived a century in a white box walked through it into daylight. This is part 5, the outside world, the return. And I need to be honest with y'all right now before we start because I think you deserve it. This part is going to end in a way that some of you will love and some of you will hate and none of you will expect. I've been sitting with this ending for weeks. I've rewritten it twice. Both times I came back to the same conclusion because it's the only ending that's true. The only ending that honors who Goku is and what this story is actually about. This isn't a power fantasy. It never was. If you've been listening this as Goku gets really strong and beats everyone, and look, there is fighting in this arc, some of the best fighting I've ever written. I'm not going to shortchange you on that. But that's all you've been listening for, this ending is going to blindside you. If you've been listening for the plate, for the rice, for the river, for Aethon's smile and Reku's name and Seraphiel's laugh, if you've been listening for the people, then this ending is for you. And I think it's going to break your heart in the best possible way. Okay, let's finish this. Afternoon. Capsule Corp West City. It's been roughly 95 days since Goku vanished. Not a long time by Dragon Ball standards. Goku has disappeared for longer, trained in Otherworld, traveled to distant planets, gotten sidetracked on adventures that lasted months. His friends and family are used to it. Worried. Yes, Chi-Chi always worries. Gohan checks in regularly, Goten asks about his dad every few days. But not panicking. Goku disappears. Goku comes back. This is the rhythm of their lives. Vegeta is training. Of course he is. The gravity chamber at Capsule Corp is running at 800x. Brutal by normal standards. Trivial by the standards of what we've spent 4 arcs describing, but Vegeta doesn't know that. Vegeta knows that Kakarot is missing, that something feels off in a way he can't articulate, and that when things feel off, the correct response is to train harder until the offness either resolves itself or presents itself as something he can punch. He's mid-rep, 5,000th push-up, weighted training gear, 800x gravity, sweat pooling on the floor, when he stops. Not because he decides to stop. His body stops. Every muscle locks. Every nerve fires a signal that isn't threat exactly, isn't danger exactly, but is the survival instinct equivalent of a prey animal sensing a predator so far above it on the food chain that the appropriate response isn't fight or flight, but absolute stillness. Play dead. Don't move. Don't breathe. Maybe it won't notice you. Vegeta has felt power before. He's felt Beerus. He's felt Jiren. He's felt Broly at the peak of his berserk escalation. He's stood in the presence of beings that could erase him with a thought, and he's never frozen. He's too proud, too stubborn, too Vegeta. He's not frozen because of what he senses. He's frozen because of what he doesn't sense. There's a spot in his awareness, the passive key sensing field that every trained fighter maintains automatically, where a person is standing. He can feel the displacement, the physical presence, the air being moved, the floor bearing weight, the thermal signature of a living body approximately 3 meters behind him. But the spot has no energy. Not low energy, not suppressed energy, no energy. A void in perception, a blind spot. Like someone cut a person-shaped hole in the fabric of reality and forgot to fill it in, the shape of a man defined entirely by the absence of everything a man should radiate. Vegeta turns around. Goku is standing in the doorway of the gravity chamber, arms at his sides, black hair, orange gi, normal eyes, smiling. That smile, the Son Goku smile. The one that hasn't changed since they were enemies on a dying planet, since Goku offered to spare his life out of pure, incomprehensible, infuriating mercy. The same smile. Exactly the same. Everything else is different. Vegeta knows. He doesn't know what he knows, but he knows. The way you know a river is deep by looking at the surface. Not because you can see the bottom, but because the water is too still, too calm, too dark to be shallow. Standing near Goku is like standing at the edge of an ocean in the dark. You can't see the bottom. You know there isn't one. Yo. That voice. Casual. Easy. The most powerful being in the history of the multiverse, and his opening line is, Yo. Vegeta stares. Vegeta's jaw works. Vegeta processes, not with his mind, which is screaming, but with his instincts, which are older and wiser and have been calibrated by a lifetime of measuring himself against this one specific person. How long? For you, about 3 months. The smile shifts, not smaller, deeper. The way a lake looks different when the sun moves behind a cloud. For me, long enough. Vegeta doesn't ask more. He could. He could demand an explanation, could interrogate, could do the Vegeta thing where pride masks curiosity and anger masks concern. But something about the depth behind Goku's eyes, the patience in them, a patience that didn't exist 3 months ago, that couldn't have existed in a man who has never in his life been patient, tells Vegeta that the answers wouldn't fit in words. So instead he asks, "Are you hungry?" Goku blinks. And then, and I want you to see this, I want you to picture it exactly. Son Goku, the unwritten, the primordial Saiyan, the being who has stepped outside the architect's framework and exists as a property of reality itself, who carries in his cells the complete divine tongue and the knowledge of an 8 million-year-old ghost, and the combat data of a rogue angel, and the love of a shadow sun, and a century of solitude and transformation. Son Goku's face lights up like a kid on Christmas morning. Oh man, yes, you have no idea. I haven't tasted real food in 100 years. Vegeta almost smiles, almost. Bulma's making dinner, there's rice. Goku makes a sound that is not dignified and is not appropriate for a being of cosmic significance, and is perfectly, utterly, unmistakably Goku. Rice, Vegeta. Real rice, rice that tastes like rice. He is vibrating, literally vibrating with excitement about rice. And that right there is what unsettles Vegeta most. Not the absence of energy, not the impossible depth, not the 100 years that apparently passed inside whatever hell Goku just walked out of. The fact that he came back from all of that, and the first thing that makes him genuinely, visibly happy is the prospect of rice that tastes like something. He's still Goku. After everything. After a century of solitude, after a ghost's death, after an angel's farewell, after a shadow sun's goodbye, after transformations that transcend the framework of reality itself, he's still Goku. Vegeta turns off the gravity chamber, walks toward the main building, doesn't look back, doesn't need to. He can feel Goku behind him, or rather, he can feel the Goku-shaped absence of everything, and somehow that's enough. Kakarot. Yeah? Whatever happened in there, you're going to tell me. Eventually. Yeah, eventually. They walk to dinner. Goku eats. My god, does he eat. Bulma, who has hosted Saiyan appetites for decades and has a kitchen staff specifically budgeted for Vegeta's caloric requirements, watches in a kind of awed horror as Goku puts away enough food for a small village. But that's not the remarkable part. She's seen Goku eat before. The remarkable part is the way he eats. Not the frenzied, shoveling, barely chewing speed eating of Goku's normal meals. He eats slowly, deliberately, each bite held in his mouth for a moment before chewing. Eyes closing, savoring. He tastes the rice and tears roll down his face, and he doesn't stop eating, and he doesn't explain. Bulma looks at Vegeta. Vegeta shakes his head slightly. Not now. After dinner, Goku asks about his family. Normal questions. Normal voice. How's Chi-Chi? Is she okay? Is she angry? Did she replant the garden this year? How's Gohan? Is the research going? How's Goten? Is he training? Did he get taller? Normal questions from a man who has been gone for 100 years and 95 days and whose family doesn't know it's been more than the latter. He goes home that night, flies to Mount Paozu, lands in the front yard. The house is the same, the garden is the same, the mountain is the same, everything is the same, because only 3 months have passed, and 3 months isn't enough for anything to change. Chi-Chi opens the door. And I'm not going to write this scene in detail because it's theirs. Whatever happens between Goku and Chi-Chi in the doorway of their home on Mount Paozu, in the golden light of a real sunset under a real sky, whatever words he says, whatever she says back, however long they stand there, that's not for us. That's not for the story. I'll tell you one thing, he doesn't explain. Not tonight. Not the full truth. He holds her and he's home, and the sky is the right shade of blue, and the rice at dinner tasted like rice, and that's enough. That's enough for now. The empty plate at the end of the table, inside a pocket mention, inside a sealed void, has done its work. The thread held, both ends. 100 years of distance, and it held. 3 days pass, normal days. Goku sleeps in his own bed. eats Chi-Chi's cooking, and if he cries at breakfast the first morning, Chi-Chi has the grace to pretend she doesn't notice, spars with Goten, visits Gohan and Pan, goes fishing, normal, blissfully, achingly, preciously normal. On day 4, Vorath's world ends. He's been monitoring the chamber's energy signature the way a doctor monitors a patient's vitals, obsessively, hourly, the data streaming into instruments he's checked 10,000 times since the seal was placed. And on day 4, the data stream goes flat, not elevated, not anomalous, flat, zero output. The chamber's energy signature reads as inert, a sealed dimension containing nothing, empty, spent. For one wild, desperate second, Vorath allows himself to hope. Maybe the chamber won, maybe the gravity crushed him, maybe the echoes overwhelmed him, maybe 100 years of isolation did what isolation is supposed to do and broke the prisoner into something that can't threaten anyone. Then he checks the seal integrity. The seal is intact, undamaged, no breach, no fracture, no failure of any kind. And the door is open, not broken, open, unlocked from the inside by a mechanism that Vorath didn't build, didn't know existed, and cannot explain. The prisoner didn't escape. The prisoner left, walked out through a door that was always there, that was always available, that required only one thing to open, the absence of the desire to use it. This is the worst case scenario. Not the prisoner broke free. That would imply desperation, instability, a being acting from rage or fear, predictable and containable. The prisoner chose to leave when he was ready implies control. Composure, a being who spent 100 years in a sealed dimension and walked out on his own terms, calmly, cleanly, with no damage to the seal because he didn't need to damage it. Vorath's hands shake. The instruments rattle in his grip. He assembles a coalition. Not from malice. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Vorath is not evil. He is a Kai who has spent his entire existence maintaining temporal seals and studying the prophecy that those seals were designed to prevent. He trapped Goku out of genuine existential cosmic scale terror that a mortal approaching structural level power would draw the attention of forces that don't negotiate, don't warn, and don't spare. The Omni Kings. The Grand Priest. The architect itself. And he was right to be afraid. He was right about all of it. The power, the danger, the attention, everything he predicted has come true. The only thing he got wrong was the response. He assumed the prisoner would break. The prisoner grew. The coalition. 4 gods of destruction. Champa, Universe 6, Liquir, Universe 8, Belmod, Universe 11, and Sidra, Universe 9. Vorath approaches each one privately, shows them the prophecy in its original divine tongue text, shows them the chamber's energy readings, the impossible escalation, the primordial signature, the readings that literally melted his instruments. Shows them the data. None of them want to believe it. All of them do. Champa agrees first, not because he's the bravest, because he's Beerus's brother, and if Beerus's mortal has become something that threatens the divine order, Champa considers it a family obligation to deal with it before Beerus has to. Champa will deny this reasoning under torture. The reasoning is obvious to everyone who knows him. Liquir agrees because the numbers scare him and Liquir has always been the god of destruction most guided by pragmatism. Belmod agrees because Jiren lost to this mortal, and if Goku has surpassed even that level, Universe 11's security framework demands a response. Sidra agrees because Sidra agrees with whatever the majority agrees with. Sidra has never had an original strategic thought in his existence, and I will not be taking questions on this. Marith and one other Sarah-class angel. Marith has already been deployed to reinforce the seal. She felt the seal open, felt the prisoner leave, and has been tracking the energy void that is Goku's unwritten state since he exited. The void is difficult to track. It registers as an absence, not a presence. But Marith is the Grand Priest's finest instrument, and she has methods. The other Sarah class is Auravane, the oldest living angel after the Grand Priest. Auravane is not a fighter. Auravane is a witness, the oldest pair of eyes in the angelic hierarchy, present at events that predate the current generation of universes. Auravane watches, records, does not act. Her presence in the coalition is not as a combatant, but as a chronicler, because whatever happens next, someone needs to remember it accurately. Vorath himself, wielding a weapon he has spent his entire career maintaining and has never once used, a temporal seal, a device that can freeze a target outside the flow of time entirely. Not slow time around them, not trap them in a time loop, remove them from time itself. The target ceases to experience temporal flow. They are not frozen in time, they are frozen from time. The universe moves on, they don't. Forever. It is, theoretically, the one weapon in existence that doesn't rely on power to function, because it doesn't attack the target's body or energy. It attacks their relationship to time, and no amount of strength can resist having a fundamental property of your existence revoked. Theoretically, Vorath also invites Beerus. Beerus declines. Vorath appears at Beerus's palace, formal, urgent. The coalition is assembled, the threat is real. Universe 7's God of Destruction has a responsibility to... No. Vorath stops. Lord Beerus, with respect, the prophecy. I know about the prophecy. Whis told me everything. Beerus is eating pudding. He does not look up from the pudding. The lattice, the Sarah class, the quarantined universes, all of it. Vorath goes pale. A guide angel revealing classified information to a destroyer is... The protocols don't even have a category for this transgression. Whis told you everything. Beerus licks the spoon. And I've decided that I don't care. You don't? I've destroyed planets, stars, civilizations. Beerus sets down the pudding cup. He still doesn't look up. His voice is calm in the way that Beerus's voice is calm before he destroys something. The calm of a being who has moved past anger into a colder, clearer state. I've erased species before breakfast and forgotten their names by lunch. I have been feared by every living thing in my jurisdiction since before their ancestors developed the capacity for fear. Now he looks up, and his eyes, the narrow, feline, ancient eyes of the oldest active god of destruction, are not angry, not afraid. They're clear. I know what a predator looks like when it's standing still. That thing walking around in Kakarot's skin is not something you fight. It's something you pray doesn't notice you. Vorath. Then help us contain. You're not listening. Beerus picks the pudding back up, resumes eating. You can't contain it. You can't fight it. You're going to try, because you're scared, and scared people do stupid things, and you're going to lose. Because 4 gods of destruction and 2 angels against that is not a battle. It's a tantrum. He takes another bite, savors it. I'm staying right here, because whatever Kakarot has become, he still came home and had dinner with his wife before he did anything else. And a being that does that, a being that walks out of 100 years of hell and goes home for rice, is not a being I need to fight. It's a being I need to sit still and not annoy. He waves a hand. Dismissal. Go play your war, Vorath. When it's over, Whis will bring me the results. Whis, standing beside Beerus, smiles. The pleasant one. The one that reveals nothing. Vorath leaves, shaking. Beerus finishes the pudding. He'll be fine, Beerus says. Not to Whis. To himself. Yes, Whis says. He will. Good. Make sure there's pudding when he comes by. Kakarot always eats everything. Of course, Lord Beerus. An empty galaxy. Vorath chose the location specifically. No planets, no stars, no life, no civilian casualties, no collateral damage, no strategic assets to protect or leverage. A sterile battlefield, the cosmic equivalent of an empty parking lot. Nothing here but vacuum and darkness and the cold light of distant galactic clusters. 6 divine beings arrayed in combat formation. 4 gods of destruction, Champa, Liquir, Belmod, Sidra, each radiating enough destructive energy to erase a universe. 2 Sarah-class angels, Mareth at the point, cold and focused, her angelic essence humming at operational capacity. The unnamed second providing support and containment. Vorath at the rear, temporal seal weapon charged and ready, hands steady through sheer force of will. Oravane hovers at the extreme edge of the battlefield, watching, recording. Her ancient eyes miss nothing. They wait. They feel him coming. Or rather, they feel the approach of nothing. A growing absence in their collective perception, like a shadow lengthening across the galaxy, a hole in the fabric of sensory reality that gets closer and closer without ever registering as a thing. The gods' key senses report nothing. The angel's deeper analysis reports nothing. Vorath's temporal instruments report nothing. But the nothing is getting closer. And then he's there. Standing in the void of space, 50 meters from the Coalition's formation, as if he'd always been there and they'd just now noticed. No dramatic entrance, no flash of light, no display of power. A man in an orange gi, floating in the vacuum of an empty galaxy, black hair and dark eyes and a small, easy smile. Hey, says Goku, so you're the welcoming committee? Champa's hands are shaking, not from fear, from the dissonance. His senses tell him the being in front of him is a baseline mortal. His instincts tell him the being in front of him is something his species wasn't designed to comprehend. The gap between sensory data and survival instinct is enormous, and Champa's body doesn't know which signal to trust. Liquier, more composed. Son Goku of Universe 7. You have been identified as a structural threat to the celestial lattice under prophecy designation. Yeah, I know the prophecy. Goku stretches. Casual, like he's warming up for a morning jog. A mortal born of battle blood will stand where only silence stood, and the lattice will know fear. Right? Aethon told me about it. The name Aethon hits the coalition like a physical blow. Vorath goes white. The Sarah-class angels exchange a glance, encrypted, faster than light, a conversation that happens in microseconds. They know that name. It's in the classified archives. The first prisoner. The first prophecy candidate. The one who was sealed 8 million years ago and never emerged. The mortal knows about Aethon. The mortal speaks the name of a being that has been classified above top secret for longer than most current species have existed. What happened in that chamber? Goku reads the fear on their faces. His expression softens, not condescending, genuinely empathetic. He knows what they're feeling. He felt it himself once, standing in front of Beerus for the first time, realizing that the universe contained things so far above him that the distance couldn't be measured. Look, he says, I get why you're here. I do. Vorath locked me in that chamber because he was scared of what I might become, and he was right to be scared. Everything he was afraid of came true, but I'm not here to fight you guys. Sidra, from the back of the formation, hopeful. Then you'll submit to. I'm not here to surrender either. Goku rolls his shoulders, cracks his neck. The movements are so normal, so mundanely physical, that the contrast with the situation, 6 divine beings in an empty galaxy, the fate of the multiverse in the balance, is almost absurd. I'm just here to show you something. Then I'm going home. We can't allow... I know. The fighting starts. Okay, let me describe this fight because I owe you guys a proper brawl, and this is it. Champa and Sidra hit first. Destruction energy, raw, unfiltered, enough to erase a solar system, blazing toward Goku from 2 angles simultaneously. Belmod fires a Hakai sphere from above. Liquier launches a precision Hakai beam from the flank. 4 gods of destruction, 4 simultaneous attacks. The combined destructive output could erase a universe. Goku doesn't dodge, he doesn't block, he doesn't counter, he doesn't power up or transform or activate any technique. The attacks curve away from him, like water around a stone, like wind around a mountain. The destruction energy, all 4 streams from 4 different angles, bends. Not deflected, not repelled. The energy simply decides it doesn't want to destroy him. The Hakai, which is the fundamental force of cosmic erasure, the divine command that says this thing ceases to exist. The Hakai encounters Goku's unwritten state, and the command fails to compile. You can't erase something that isn't written in the system. You can't delete a file that doesn't exist in the directory. The energy has no valid target, so it diverts. The 4 streams of destruction energy curve away from Goku, merge behind him, and dissipate harmlessly into the vacuum. Goku didn't move. Sorry, he says. Didn't even feel that. Champa screams. The full-throated, pride-wounded, I am a god of destruction scream that has preceded the erasure of civilizations. He and Liquier combine their Hakai. Everything. Both of them. Their full destructive output merged into a single sphere of erasure energy so vast that it has its own gravitational field. The sphere is white-hot, vibrating at frequencies that shred dimensional boundaries, and it's the size of a small planet. The largest single Hakai ever generated, enough to erase everything. Matter, energy, concept, the very memory, whatever it touches, scrubbed from the timeline and the causal record and existence itself. It hits Goku, or it hits the space where Goku is standing. The energy washes over him, through him, around him. For 3 full seconds, Goku is inside a sphere of destruction energy, powerful enough to erase a universe. The sphere dissipates. Goku is standing in the same spot, untouched. His shirt is slightly singed. The outer layer of fabric, not protected by his unwritten state because the shirt is just a shirt, took some heat damage. He looks down at the scorch mark, genuinely annoyed. Not at the attack, not at the threat to his life, at the shirt damage. I like this shirt. Champa collapses. Not from damage, from exhaustion. That combined Hakai drained everything he had. He floats in the void, gasping, and stares at the mortal who survived the total output of 2 gods of destruction without flinching, and something breaks in him. Not his body, his certainty. The bedrock conviction that gods of destruction are the pinnacle, that Hakai is absolute, that the divine order is ordered. It cracks. Belmod and Sidra don't attack. They saw. They understood. They're done. Mareth. This is the fight within the fight, the one that actually matters. Mareth steps forward. The gods of destruction fall back, not ordered to, but instinctively, the way smaller predators clear space when the apex arrives. Mareth is Sarah class, Grand Priest's instrument, the strongest enforcer in the angelic hierarchy. She doesn't speak, doesn't posture, doesn't threaten, she attacks. And y'all, I want you to understand the speed differential here. Gods of destruction are fast, incomprehensibly fast by mortal standards. But Mareth is to a god of destruction what a god of destruction is to a baseline human. She moves at speeds that the 4 destroyers present literally cannot perceive. To them, Mareth and Goku simply vanish, and the shockwaves arrive a half-second later. Mareth fights the way Sarah-class angels fight, reality edits layered over physical combat, each strike accompanied by a local physics modification designed to maximize damage. She rewrites the gravitational constant in Goku's immediate vicinity. She inverts the electromagnetic force around his nervous system to disrupt his neural signals. She layers temporal distortions over spatial compressions, creating cascading reality modifications that Goku blocks her punch with one hand, blocks the reality edit with still mind. His nervous system pre-adapted to the modification before she deployed it because the edit is written in angelic script and Goku reads angelic script the way you read a street sign. She recalibrates, faster edits, more complex layering. She's pouring everything into this. Centuries of enforcer training, techniques developed personally by the Grand Priest, the absolute cutting edge of angelic combat methodology. She is fast and she is precise, and she is throwing everything the hierarchy has at a mortal in an orange gi, who is slowing down, not struggling, not failing, deliberately slowing down. Goku is matching her speed, has been matching her speed from the first exchange, and is now incrementally decelerating, pulling back, reducing his response time from instantaneous to merely superhuman to merely fast. He's slowing down so she can keep up. Mareth realizes this. She realizes it mid-exchange, mid-strike, mid-reality edit, reads it in the rhythm of his blocks, in the patience of his counters, in the gentleness with which he redirects her attacks. He's not fighting her. He's accommodating her, giving her a fight that feels competitive because the alternative, the real speed, the real power, the unwritten state at full engagement, wouldn't be a fight at all. It would be nothing. She stops, steps back. Her angelic essence, the carrier medium for her reality edits, the fundamental substance of her combat system, dims. Not in surrender, in recognition. The recognition of a being who has spent her entire existence as the strongest enforcer in the hierarchy, looking at something that makes strongest a meaningless word. She doesn't speak, doesn't need to. She steps back to the formation's rear line. Done. Vorath. The last one standing. The Kai who started all of this. Temporal seal weapon in his trembling hands, the one device that doesn't rely on power, that attacks the target's relationship to time itself, that should work regardless of how strong the target is because it doesn't engage with strength at all. He fires. The temporal seal hits Goku dead center. For 1 second, one beautiful, terrible, hope-filled second, it works. Goku freezes, his body stops, his eyes lock, time ceases to flow through him. He is removed from the temporal stream, suspended outside causality, frozen not in time, but from time. 1 second. 2 seconds. Vorath's breath hitches. His eyes are wide. It's working. The weapon is working. The prophecy can be, Goku moves. He moves inside the freeze. His hand comes up, slowly, casually, like someone brushing a cobweb off their sleeve, and touches the temporal seal's energy field. And the field crumbles, not disperses. Crumbles, like old plaster, like something that was only ever held together by the assumption that it would work, and the assumption has been withdrawn. Because the temporal seal attacks the target's relationship to time, and Goku's relationship to time is, like all his relationships to fundamental forces, not defined by the framework. The seal tries to revoke his temporal flow, but his temporal flow isn't granted by the system. It's intrinsic, a property of him, not a property assigned to him. You can't revoke something you didn't give. The weapon shatters, physically shatters. The device in Vorath's hands cracks and crumbles and falls to pieces, the temporal energy that powered it bleeding away into nothing. And more than that, the backlash burns through Vorath's connection to temporal energy, his specialty, his life's work, the power that defines his role, his rank, his identity. Keeper of temporal seals, the Kai who maintains the locks. The backlash scorches those channels clean, not damaged, erased. Vorath's temporal powers are gone, permanently. He collapses, alive, unhurt physically. But the part of him that was a temporal Kai, the part that could feel the flow of time, could touch the seals, could read the dimensional barriers, that part is dark, silent, empty. Goku floats down to him, kneels, looks at the Kai who locked him in a box for 100 years, the Kai who stole a century of his life, a century of Chi-Chi's marriage, a century of watching Gohan and Goten grow, a century of rivalries with Vegeta and friendships with Krillin and adventures he'll never have. Vorath looks up at him, waiting for the blow, the erasure, the judgment, whatever justice 100 years of imprisonment earns. Goku flicks him on the forehead, one finger. Light impact, the kind of thing you do to a kid who told a bad joke. Thwop. Vorath blinks. You locked me in there because you were scared of the prophecies, Goku says. And this is the part that breaks Vorath more completely than any attack could. Gentle. Not gentle like condescension. Gentle like understanding. Like a man who has spent 100 years processing his anger and come out the other side with something cleaner. I'm not mad, but don't do it again. He stands. Turns to the rest of the coalition, the exhausted gods, the silent angels, the collapsed Kai. Go home, all of you. Take care of your universes. They go. Silently. Champa first, then Sidra, then Liquier and Belmod, each one vanishing without a word, returning to their domains to process what they've witnessed and wonder what it means. The unnamed Sarah-class angel follows. Marith lingers for one moment, looks at Goku with an expression that almost contains respect, and then she too is gone. Oravane remains, the oldest witness, the chronicler. She nods at Goku. Once. The nod of a being who has watched the multiverse for longer than most of it has existed, who has seen gods rise and fall and rise again, and who recognizes in this moment, in this mortal, something she has never seen before. Then she's gone. Goku floats alone in the empty galaxy. The void of space stretches in every direction. Stars in the distance, galaxies beyond them, the cosmic web of structure that holds the universe together, visible at this scale, as faint threads of light connecting island clusters of matter. He looks at the stars. He hasn't seen real stars in 100 years. Hey, Ethon, he says to nobody, to the void. You were right. The outside world is still here. The stars don't answer. They don't need to. He arrives without announcement. No portal, no transit, no visible approach. Between one moment and the next, Grand Priest is there, standing in the empty galaxy that was Vorath's chosen battlefield, the cosmic vacuum around him perfectly still, his presence filling the space the way a conductor fills a concert hall. Not through volume, through centrality. Everything orbits him. He is the point around which attention naturally revolves. No escort, no Sarah-class backup, no display of force. Just him and Goku. Grand Priest dismisses the Coalition's remnants with a single gesture. A small wave of his hand that transmits through angelic channels, a universal stand-down order. The beaten gods, the shaken angels, all of them, sent away to their respective domains. Not unkindly, but absolutely. The way a parent sends children out of the room when the adults need to talk. They're alone, two beings, nothing else. Grand Priest drops the smile, and I need you to understand how significant that is. The smile is Grand Priest's constant, his defining feature. The pleasant, composed, utterly unreadable expression that he has worn for billions of years across trillions of interactions. It is his armor, his diplomacy, his mask. It is the face he shows to Zeno, to the angels, to the multiverse. It has never, in recorded history, been absent. It's absent now. What's underneath is older, tireder, more real. The face of a being who has been performing composure for longer than most civilizations have existed, and who has just decided for the first time that the person in front of him deserves to see what's behind the performance. Son Goku, he says. His voice is different without the smile. Rougher, deeper, less musical and more textured, like stone instead of crystal. Hey, Goku's voice is the same as always. No smile today? No. Good. The smile's kind of creepy. Grand Priest's mouth twitches. Not a smile. A reflex toward a smile. Suppressed. The muscle memory of billions of years. I owe you an explanation, he says. Before anything else happens, you deserve to understand what you're standing in the middle of. The lattice, Goku says. Yes. Athon told me most of it. Seraphiel filled in the rest. But there's something they didn't know, isn't there? Something only you know. Grand Priest is quiet for a moment. Measuring. Deciding. Then, the celestial lattice is failing. And here it comes, the final lore drop, the one that contextualizes everything. It has been failing for eons, Grand Priest continues, since before the current generation of destroyers, since before most of the current species in any universe evolved. The lattice was never designed to be permanent. The architect built it as a temporary scaffold, a framework to hold the multiverse's structure in place while the organized energy stabilized. But it never stabilized. He gestures, and the space around them shifts. Not a physical change, a perceptual one. Goku's awareness, his unwritten framework external perception, expands and he sees it, the lattice, not with his eyes, with something deeper, the invisible framework that holds all 18 universes in alignment. The shelf holding the snow globes, the dam holding the river, the code running the program. He sees it as a vast, intricate, beautiful web of interlocking structures, each one a miracle of engineering, each one a monument to the architect's design and Grand Priest's maintenance. And he sees the cracks, hairline fractures running through the web, patches, countless patches, billions of them, layered over each other like bandages on a wound that never heals. Reinforcements that have been reinforced, the original structure buried under so many repairs that some sections are more patch than foundation. The 6 quarantined universes are visible as dark spots, nodes disconnected from the web, drifting, their structural tethers severed to prevent their decay from spreading to the rest. 6 wounds that were cauterized rather than healed. It's breathtaking, and it's dying. I have maintained this alone, Grand Priest says, for billions of years, personally. Every crack, every fracture, every point of failure, patching, reinforcing, compensating. I cannot stop. I cannot rest. I cannot delegate because no being has ever been strong enough to share the burden. His voice doesn't waver, but the weight in it, the sheer geological tectonic weight of billions of years of solitary maintenance, is staggering. This is not a being asking for sympathy. This is a being stating facts. Facts that he has never stated to anyone, because there has never been anyone to state them to. Zeno doesn't know, he continues. The Omni Kings are powerful beyond measure, but they are not structural. They create and destroy. They don't maintain. If they knew the lattice existed and that it was failing, they would try to fix it the only way they know how, by erasing things. And the lattice is everything. Erasing it would collapse the multiverse into the primordial chaos it was built to contain. So you've been holding it together alone, Goku says. Not a question. Billions of years. By yourself. No one to help. No one who even knows. Yes. Goku is quiet for a moment, then that sounds really lonely. Grand Priest looks at him. The same look Athon gave once years ago when Goku said the same thing about the same kind of isolation. The look of a being who has existed for so long in the absence of empathy that the sudden presence of it feels like a physical force. Yes, says Grand Priest. It is. Another silence. Then Grand Priest continues. The prophecy doesn't scare me because a mortal might destroy the lattice. A mortal strong enough to threaten the lattice is dangerous, yes, but dangerous things can be managed. He looks at Goku. Full eye contact, no mask, no pretense. The prophecy scares me because a mortal might not need the lattice. If you are stable at structural level power, if you can hold primordial energy without a containment framework, without unraveling, without going mad, then the lattice's fundamental premise is wrong. The entire containment system is unnecessary. A mortal can exist at this level without the dam. And if the dam is unnecessary, then I have spent billions of years maintaining something that doesn't need to exist. And the architect built something that didn't need to be built. And everything I've done, everything I've sacrificed, everything I've endured was for nothing. His voice cracks. Not dramatically. A hairline fracture, a micro break, a fissure in the composure of the most composed being in existence. The sound of a load-bearing wall developing a stress fracture after billions of years of carrying weight. It was never designed to carry alone. Goku hears it. Of course he hears it. After 100 years, after Ethon, after everything, he hears the sound of a being on the edge of breaking. It wasn't for nothing, Goku says, quietly, firmly. The lattice held. For billions of years, it held. Because of you. Maybe it wasn't supposed to be permanent. Maybe the architect got it wrong. But the universes are here. The people in them are here. That's not nothing. Grand Priest doesn't respond. But the fracture in his composure doesn't widen. Holds. So, says Goku. And he shifts his weight. Rolls his shoulders. That gesture. The combat-ready loosening, the pre-fight relaxation that every opponent Goku has ever faced recognizes. You want to go? Grand Priest stares at him. What? You've been the strongest thing in the multiverse for billions of years, holding everything up, no breaks, no rest, nobody to fight, nobody to test you. Goku's eyes brighten. That look. I figure you're owed a good one. And Grand Priest, the Supreme Angel, the Lattice's sole guardian, the most disciplined and controlled and restrained being in all of existence, feels something he hasn't felt since before the current multiverse was organized. He feels the urge to fight. Not the obligation, not the duty. The urge. The raw, primal, undeniable desire to test himself against something worthy. It hits him like a wave, a feeling so old and so buried that he'd forgotten it existed, unearthed by a mortal's invitation in an empty galaxy. He doesn't smile, but his eyes change. The tiredness doesn't leave, but something joins it, something bright. You understand, he says slowly, that I am not going to hold back. I'm counting on it. Grand Priest at full power. I'm going to give this a paragraph of its own, because it deserves one. Grand Priest at full power, not the measured, controlled fraction of a percent output he displays in canon, not the composed demonstration of superiority he uses to train guide angels or discipline destroyers. Full power. Every technique he has developed or absorbed or created over billions of years. Secret arts that predate the current multiverse. Abilities that only the architect was supposed to know. The complete, unrestrained, no smile, no mask, no performance totality of the strongest angel in existence, unleashed for the first time in recorded history. The empty galaxy shudders. The fight. I'm going to describe this fight as best I can, but I want to be transparent. There is a limit to what language can do with combat at this scale. This isn't two people punching each other really hard. This is two beings operating at the structural level of reality, exchanging attacks that don't just damage physical matter but rewrite the rules that physical matter follows. Each exchange alters the local physics. Each counter adjusts the alteration. The fight is happening simultaneously in physical space, dimensional space, temporal space, and the conceptual space that underlies all three. Grand Priest opens with techniques that predate the multiverse. Arts from the previous cosmic cycle, preserved in his memory across the reorganization of existence itself. Attacks that don't have names because they were developed before language existed. Each one is a masterwork, the culmination of eons of practice refined to absolute perfection. Goku takes them, not blocks, not dodges, takes, accepts each technique, absorbs its impact, processes its structure, and survives. Not because he's tougher, because the attacks can't conceptualize a target that exists outside their framework. They hit him, and they work. The physics modifications land, the dimensional distortions engage, the temporal disruptions fire, and Goku's unwritten state simply isn't affected. The modifications apply to the space he occupies. The space is modified. Goku is not, because Goku is not a property of that space. He's a property of himself. Grand Priest escalates. Faster, harder, more complex. He layers attacks that no single being should be able to process, cascading reality modifications that rewrite physics, revert the rewrite the reversion, and invert the whole sequence in under a nanosecond. It's not combat, it's composition. A symphony of destruction played on an instrument made of space-time, and Grand Priest has been practicing for billions of years. Goku keeps up, he fights back, not with the same techniques, not with reality edits or angelic script or key scripting. He fights with his fists, punches, kicks, the fundamental irreducible language of martial arts, the language that predates every system and every framework and every technique. And it works, because at the structural level, at the level where Grand Priest operates, where the lattice exists, where reality itself is written, Physical force isn't just one option among many, it's the primary interaction. Everything else, ki blasts, energy waves, reality edits, is an abstraction of physical force. A more sophisticated way of saying this thing hits that thing. Strip away the abstraction and what's left is contact, impact, the fundamental interaction between two objects in space. Goku has spent 100 years stripping away abstractions. His fists hit the way a law of physics hits, not through force, but through definition. When Goku's fist connects with Grand Priest's guard, the impact doesn't just transfer kinetic energy. It asserts itself. The universe acknowledges the contact the way it acknowledges gravity, as an axiom, not a calculation. The fight goes long. Not because they're equal, Goku has surpassed Grand Priest. They both know it. Goku knew it before the fight started. Grand Priest knew it 30 seconds in. Goku lets it go long anyway because he understands. He understands what this fight is. It's not a contest. It's a farewell. Grand Priest has been the strongest thing in existence for longer than the stars have burned. He has carried that weight alone, without rest, without recognition, without a single moment of respite. And now a mortal has arrived who is beyond him, who surpassed him inside a prison, who grew past the structure Grand Priest has spent billions of years maintaining, and the era of Grand Priest as the multiverse's apex is over. Goku doesn't end it quickly, because Grand Priest deserves a real fight. Not a mercy, not a demonstration, a real fight. The kind Grand Priest hasn't had since before the lattice was built. The kind where you throw everything you have and someone throws it back and you feel it. So Goku gives him that, takes every attack, answers every technique, pushes Grand Priest to dig deeper and deeper into his arsenal, pulling out moves that haven't been used in eons, abilities that he'd forgotten he knew. Techniques from a version of himself so ancient that the muscle memory has to be excavated from geological layers of accumulated experience. And Grand Priest fights. For the first time in his existence, he fights without holding back, without calculating, without maintaining the lattice, or managing the hierarchy, or performing composure. He fights like a being who has been given permission to be something other than the load-bearing wall for the first time in billions of years. And it's magnificent. Grand Priest at full power, at full release, with nothing held in reserve and nothing to maintain. He's art. Every movement a masterpiece, every technique a legacy. Goku takes it all, answers it all, and gives Grand Priest the gift of trying, truly pushing, truly reaching, and falling short. Not humiliatingly, not painfully, honestly. The honest experience of meeting something greater and knowing it and being okay with it, because the reaching was the point, not the reaching's success. The fight ends when Grand Priest stops, not from defeat, from completion. He's thrown everything, every art, every technique, every ounce of power accumulated over billions of years. And the mortal in front of him is standing there, unhurt, smiling, not in triumph, in respect. Grand Priest breathes hard. For the first time in his existence, winded. The sensation is so alien to him, the physical experience of having exerted himself fully, that he stands in the vacuum of the empty galaxy and feels his chest heave and marvels at it. "You could replace me," he says, still breathing hard. Each word measured. "Hold the lattice. You're strong enough, stronger than I ever was. You could maintain the framework, not just patch it, not just reinforce it, but rebuild it. The decay I've been fighting for billions of years, you could reverse it. Stabilize it. Make it permanent." Goku listens. The multiverse would be safe, truly safe. Not the fragile, constantly crumbling safety that I've been providing. Real, structural, permanent safety. You could do what I couldn't, what the architect designed the lattice to do in the first place. "Yeah," Goku says, "but that sounds boring." Grand Priest stares at him, and then Grand Priest laughs. Not a chuckle, not a polite, measured, diplomatic expression of amusement. A laugh. Full, real, helpless, free. The sound of a being who hasn't laughed in billions of years, who forgot what laughter felt like, who buried the capacity for joy under layers and layers of duty and composure and the grinding, endless weight of holding everything together. The laugh echoes through the empty galaxy, bounces off nothing, fills the void with the most human sound the most inhuman being in existence has ever produced. Goku grins. The big one. "Come on," he says, "let's go figure out what comes next." The sky of every universe flickers. Once. Just once. A single momentary disruption in the visual field of every sky on every planet in every universe in the multiverse. Daylight skies stutter, nighttime skies pulse. Every being in existence, mortal, divine, angelic, every conscious entity across all 18 universes simultaneously, looks up at the same moment. Not because they decide to, because they have to. The flicker triggers something deeper than curiosity, deeper than reflex. A compulsion written into the fundamental nature of consciousness itself, as if the capacity to look up was designed into sentient beings for this exact moment and has been waiting, dormant, since the first mind opened its first thought. The architect speaks, not in words, not in sound, not in any medium that can be processed by ears or eyes or key senses or angelic perception, in understanding. Every being in existence simultaneously comprehends a single thought, delivered directly into the substrate of their consciousness with no intermediary. Come. Goku vanishes. Not instant transmission. There's no technique involved, no key lock, no movement. He is simply called. Pulled out of normal space-time the way a word is pulled from a page, lifted, extracted, relocated to somewhere that isn't a place. The threshold, outside the 18 universes, outside the null realm, outside the lattice, outside everything. A non-space, an unplace. Not darkness. Darkness is the absence of light, which implies a space where light could exist. This is the absence of space itself. No volume, no dimension, no direction, no distance, no coordinates. A location defined entirely by what it isn't, anything. Goku stands in, on, within, at the threshold. There is no ground beneath his feet and no air around his body and no light entering his eyes, and yet he stands and breathes and sees because the architect permits it. His presence here is a courtesy extended by the underlying logic of existence to a variable it doesn't recognize. The architect, it's not a being. Goku knew this intellectually. Aethon told him. Seraphiel confirmed it. His own study of the lattice suggested it. But experiencing it is different from knowing it. The architect is not a person, not a god, not a consciousness in any recognizable sense. It is the equation the multiverse runs on, the logic, the math, the code, the if-then-else that determines what is possible and what isn't, what exists and what can't. Goku can't see it, can't hear it, can't sense it with any mechanism, mortal, divine, angelic, or unwritten. It doesn't register as a presence because it doesn't have presence. Presence is a property it defines, not a property it possesses. But he can feel its question. The question isn't spoken, it isn't transmitted, it doesn't arrive through any channel. Goku simply knows it, the way you know you're alive. Not because someone told you, but because the knowledge is a prerequisite of the experience. What are you? Not how strong are you? Not what do you want? Not why are you here? What are you? The architect has never encountered something that doesn't fit its framework. Everything in the multiverse, every particle, every force, every being, every thought is written in its code, defined by its logic, described by its math. The architect is the equation, and everything in existence is a variable in that equation. Goku is not a variable. Goku is unwritten. He exists inside the multiverse, occupies space, interacts with matter, experiences time. But he is not defined by the multiverse's code. The equation runs, and there's a term in it that the equation didn't generate, a constant that appeared from outside the math, an axiom that the system doesn't recognize because the system didn't write it. The math doesn't work. For the first time in the architect's existence, and the architect's existence is coterminous with existence itself, the math doesn't work. There is a value in the equation that the equation can't account for. A mortal holds primordial energy without a containment framework. A being that operates at structural levels without structural authorization. A thing that is and should not be and persists in being regardless. The architect has a problem it has never had before, and it needs Goku to solve it. 3 options, not presented in words, presented as mathematical certainties. Goku doesn't hear them or read them. He understands them the way he understood the question as knowledge that precedes explanation. Option 1, become the new lattice, replace the failing framework. Goku's power, his unwritten, framework external, primordial tier power, becomes the structural foundation of reality itself, not maintaining the lattice, being the lattice. His energy woven into every universe, every dimension, every particle. The scaffold that holds everything together, replaced by a living architecture that doesn't decay because it isn't mechanical. It's organic, It adapts, it grows, everything holds, everything is safe, every universe, every being, every life, protected by a framework made of Goku's power. Cost: Goku ceases to exist as a person. No body, no mind, no self, no consciousness. He becomes a force, the gravitational constant of the multiverse, the load-bearing wall that Grand Priest was, except permanent and self-sustaining. He won't die, he won't suffer, he simply won't be permanent. Option 2, be erased completely, not killed, unexisted, removed from all timelines, all memories, all causality. Every moment Goku ever participated in is rewritten. He was never born, never grew up, never trained, never fought, never loved, never existed. Raditz arrives on Earth and finds no one. Frieza conquers Namek unopposed. Cell, Buu, Beerus, Jiren, every crisis Goku averted reverts to its non-intervention outcome. Some of those outcomes are catastrophic. The Architect will compensate as needed. Chi-Chi never meets him. Gohan is never born. Goten is never born. Vegeta never has a rival. Krillin never has a best friend. In the revised timeline, no one mourns because there's nothing to mourn. The lattice stabilizes because the anomaly is removed. The equation balances, permanent. Option 3, return sealed. Go home. Power locked to mortal levels, strong but not structural, not a threat to the lattice, live a normal life. Watch Gohan's research, spar with Vegeta, eat rice that tastes like rice, grow old, die. The normal mortal experience, uninterrupted. The lattice continues its slow decay, Grand Priest continues his lonely maintenance. The problem isn't solved, it's deferred. Perhaps another million years before the decay becomes critical, perhaps less. Eventually someone else has to solve it, or nothing solves it and the multiverse collapses. Temporary. 3 options. 3 mathematical certainties. The only 3 outcomes where the equation balances. There is no 4th option. The Architect doesn't negotiate, doesn't bargain, doesn't create exceptions. These are not demands, they are calculations. The output of a formula. The only 3 answers the math permits. Goku stands at the threshold, the non-place beyond everything, alone with an equation that contains all of existence. And he is quiet for a very long time, the longest silence of his life. "You're the smartest thing that's ever existed, right?" he says, eventually, into the nothing, to the math. "The whole multiverse runs on your code?" The Architect confirms, not in words, in certainty. "Then you already calculated what I'd pick. You knew before you asked. So why ask?" No response. And the absence of response is, for the first time in this entire encounter, uncertain. The Architect operates on logic, and logic doesn't hesitate. But the silence after Goku's question has the texture of hesitation, of a system encountering an input it wasn't designed for. "You asked because you wanted to see a mortal choose." Goku's voice is calm, not the calm of emptiness, the calm of the river, the calm of still water running deep. Because in all your math, all your equations across all of time, you've never once had someone stand here. You don't know what I'm going to do, and that scares you. Silence, the Architect, the underlying logic of existence, the equation that has run without error since before time began, is silent. And in that silence, Son Goku, mortal, Saiyan, father, husband, friend, student, fighter, the unwritten, makes his choice. I pick the first one. Goku's body begins to dissolve. Not painfully, not violently, gently. Golden threads of energy unspool from his skin, from his hands first, then his arms, his chest, his legs, spreading outward like roots growing in reverse, reaching out into the nothing of the threshold and finding the lattice beyond it. The threads are warm. Warm the way sunlight is warm, the way a kitchen is warm, the way the space between 2 people who love each other is warm. He's becoming the lattice, thread by thread, cell by cell. His power, his unwritten, framework external, primordial level power, is unspooling from his body and weaving itself into the structure of reality, not replacing the old lattice's rigid mechanical framework, growing through it. The way vines grow through a crumbling wall, not destroying the wall, but supplementing it, filling the cracks with something living. Grand Priest, back in the empty galaxy, feels it. The lattice, his burden, his charge, his lonely, endless, thankless work, shifts. The cracks he's been patching for billions of years stop widening. The patches stop fraying. The structural tension that has been his constant companion, the weight he's carried every second of every day for longer than most species have existed, the weight decreases. Something is holding the lattice up, something other than him. For the first time in billions of years, Grand Priest straightens, not physically, structurally. The part of him that has been bent under the weight of holding everything together, the part that exists not in his body but in his function, that part straightens because the weight is being shared. His eyes widen. He knows what's happening. He knows who. At the threshold, Goku is dissolving. The golden threads have taken most of his body now. His legs are gone, dissolved into lines of warm light that stretch into infinity. His torso is translucent, the threads pulling away from his core, his ki, his self. He can feel himself expanding, not growing, not powering up, but stretching. His consciousness reaching outward, touching the edges of Universe 1, Universe 2, all 18, feeling the trillions of lives within them the way you feel raindrops on your skin. Each one distinct, each one real. He's fading. His memories are flattening. The sharp, specific, personal memories of a man named Goku are being compressed into structural data, into the functional logic of a living lattice. The memory of Chi-Chi's face is becoming the structural integrity of a dimensional boundary. The memory of Vegeta's rivalry is becoming the tensile strength of an interdimensional tether. The memory of Gohan's first steps is becoming the load-bearing capacity of a universal anchor point. He's losing himself, and the multiverse is gaining him. But, as he dissolves, as the last of his body unwinds into golden light and his consciousness begins the final stretch toward total structural integration, Son Goku does something small, something quiet, something the architect's math didn't account for, because the architect's math doesn't have a variable for stubbornness, doesn't have a term for love, doesn't have a function for the particular, specific, irreducible quality of being Son Goku. He leaves seeds. Not seeds of power, not fragments of ki or remnants of techniques or echoes of ability, seeds of himself. The parts that aren't power. The parts that the lattice doesn't need and the architect didn't ask for and the equation can't use. The part that laughs when he's losing. The part that bows before a fight. The part that loves rice and naps and the sound of Chi-Chi's voice when she's pretending to be angry but isn't really. The part that set an empty plate every meal for 70 years. The part that named a shadow. The part that told a ghost its lessons mattered. The part that built an angel a home. He breaks these pieces off, tiny, invisible, impossibly small fragments of self, too small for the architect to notice, too personal to have structural value, too Goku to dissolve into function, and he hides them. He hides them inside the lattice, like stones in a river, like notes in a bottle, like inscriptions carved into a floor by a dying man who hoped someone would find them. The seeds scatter, riding the golden threads outward, drifting through the structure of reality, finding homes. One seed lands in Vegeta's ki. Capsule Corp, evening. Vegeta is mid-training, always pushing, always reaching, when he stops. Not because he senses something, because he feels something, a warmth in his chest, not physical heat. The warmth of, he doesn't know. He doesn't have the word for it. The closest he comes in the privacy of his own mind is recognition. The specific, unmistakable warmth of being known by someone who has known you at your worst and your best and accepted both without condition. His mouth twitches, almost a smile. He doesn't know why. He'll never know why. And he'll spend the rest of his life chasing the source of that warmth. And it will make him better. And he will never find it because it's already found him. One seed lands in Gohan's study, Sun residence. Late. Gohan is at his desk, surrounded by research papers, reading by lamplight the way his mother wishes he wouldn't because it's bad for his eyes. A page of his research, a paper on theoretical physics, on the structural properties of space-time, flips on its own. No wind, no draft. The page turns, and the passage it lands on is about courage. Not physical courage. Intellectual courage. The courage to ask questions that might not have answers. The courage to look at the framework and ask why. Gohan reads the passage. He doesn't know why it resonates, it just does. He turns the lamp off, goes to bed. In his dreams, someone is laughing, a big, warm, unself-conscious laugh, and he can't see who. But the laugh makes him feel safe. One seed lands in Goten's hand. He's eating lunch. Rice, vegetables, the kind of big, hearty, carb-loaded meal his mother makes because she has spent decades feeding Saiyans and knows exactly how many calories they burn. Mid-bite, Goten pauses. The rice in his mouth tastes different. Not bad different, better. Better than any rice has ever tasted. Better than food has any right to taste on a random Tuesday in a kitchen he's eaten in 1,000 times. His eyes water. He doesn't understand why. The rice tastes like he doesn't have the word. The rice tastes like someone, like a specific person, a specific presence, a specific warmth that he associates with big hands and a bigger laugh and the feeling of being picked up as a small child by someone who could carry the weight of the world and chose to carry him instead. Mom, he says, this rice is really good. Chi-Chi, at the stove. It's the same recipe as always. Yeah, Goten says, swallows, wipes his eyes. It's really good though. One seed lands in Chi-Chi's garden, Mount Paozu, the garden she's tended for decades. The garden she planted the first year she and Goku were married. The garden she maintained through every disappearance, every death, every departure, every I'll be right back that turned into months or years of absence. A flower blooms, out of season, wrong time of year. A small, golden flower in the corner of the garden, in the spot where the afternoon sun hits warmest. In the exact spot where Goku used to sit and watch her work while pretending he wasn't staring. Chi-Chi sees it, kneels down, touches the petals. She stares at it for a long time. A very long time. She doesn't say anything. She doesn't need to. She's been married to Son Goku for decades. She knows what it looks like when he does something impossible and expects her to just accept it. She waters the flower, goes back inside, makes dinner, sets the table, normal number of places, +1. One seed drifts into the hyperbolic time chamber, inside the pocket dimension, the house by the river, the table with the places set, the sky that's trying to be Earth's sky. Reku is meditating on the hill. The air shifts. Not a physical shift, a tonal shift, a change in the ambient quality of the void the way a room changes when someone walks in. A warmth, a stubbornness, a grin without a face. Reku opens his eyes, looks at the sky. Old man? No answer. But the two turquoise blue of the artificial sky shifts, deepens. For one moment, one long, perfect, impossible moment, the sky above the pocket dimension is the exact shade of Earth's sky. Not the approximation, not the emotional extrapolation, the real thing. The sky Goku saw when he walked out of the chamber 100 days ago and blinked against the daylight for the first time in a century. The real sky, his gift, his goodbye. Then it fades, but not all the way. The blue stays a little richer, a little deeper, a little more right. Permanent. Reku watches the sky for a long time, then settles back into meditation, golden and still. Home. One seed reaches the null realm. A pocket, a hidden space. A safe house built by Ki, scripting and primordial energy, tucked into the topology of a dimension between dimensions. Seraphiel is there, sitting in the small, quiet space Goku built her. Not running, not scanning, not vigilant. For the first time in centuries, still. Something drifts into the space, a mote of golden warmth. Tiny, invisible to any scan or instrument, it settles into her open palm without her noticing, and she closes her hand around it reflexively, the way you'd catch a snowflake without thinking. She opens her hand, nothing visible, but her palm is warm, and the warmth feels like... She closes her eyes. Laughter. It feels like laughter. Big, stupid, graceless, joyful laughter. The laughter of a mortal who offered a fugitive angel fake rice in a sealed prison and meant it with his whole heart. Seraphiel closes her hand, holds the warmth against her chest, and sits in silence in her safe house in the void between universes, holding a dead man's laughter in her palm. Goku is gone. He is the lattice now, his power woven through every universe, every dimension, every particle, every atom, every quantum fluctuation across the entirety of structured reality. The multiverse holds, not through rigid mechanical framework, not through the brittle, patched, crumbling scaffold that Grand Prix spent billions of years maintaining, but through something warmer, something that gives and flexes and refuses to break. A living architecture that adapts, that grows, that responds to stress with resilience rather than rigidity. Grand Priest feels the change immediately. The lattice isn't mechanical anymore. It feels alive, like a heart beating, like a river flowing, like a stubborn, kind, impossibly optimistic force that holds everything together, not because it was designed to, but because it wants to. No one except Grand Priest, Whis, Beerus, and Vegeta knows what happened. To everyone else, Goku simply left one day on another adventure and hasn't come back yet. He'll be back, right? He always comes back. Months pass. He doesn't come back. Gohan starts asking questions. Goten starts looking at the sky. Krillin calls, asks if anyone's heard from him. Piccolo meditates and searches for a key signature that no longer exists and finds nothing and tells no one about the nothing. Chi-Chi tends her garden. The golden flower grows. She waters it every day. She doesn't explain it to anyone. She knows. She doesn't know what she knows, but she knows. An empty galaxy, the same one. The same void of space where Vorat's coalition stood and failed and went home. Cold, dark, silent. No planets, no stars, nothing. Vegeta stands alone, full Saiyan armor, white gloves, blue bodysuit, arms crossed. The posture hasn't changed since the day he landed on Earth. Spine straight, chin up, every line of his body communicating the precise, deliberate, aggressive dignity that is Vegeta's alternative to vulnerability. He powers up. Everything he has, every transformation, every technique, every ounce of Saiyan pride compressed into a single pillar of ki that erupts from his body and lights the empty galaxy like a dying star. Blue light, the blue of Super Saiyan Blue, of Ultra Ego, of every form Vegeta has ever achieved, blazing outward, filling the darkness, casting the void in the color of Vegeta's unyielding, unbreakable, utterly relentless refusal to accept any outcome he hasn't approved. He screams into the void, not grief. He will not give this the satisfaction of being grief. This is challenge. Pure, undiluted, Saiyan-blooded challenge, the fundamental interaction that has defined Goku and Vegeta's relationship since the moment they met. The eternal, unresolvable, essential contest between two men who make each other more by refusing to be less. I know you're in there, Kakarot. His voice cracks the silence, echoes off nothing, fades into the dark, woven into every damn atom in this universe. I know you can hear me. Nothing. The galaxy is empty. The stars are far away. The void doesn't answer because the void is just void, isn't it? It's just cold, empty space and there's no one here and... You think becoming the multiverse means you get to quit? His voice breaks. Not from weakness, from volume. From the force of pushing every feeling he has never expressed through a throat that was not designed for expression. Vegeta does not say what he feels. Vegeta screams what he feels into galaxies where no one can hear, and that is the only vulnerability the Prince of all Saiyans will ever allow himself. You think you get to disappear before I surpass you? Nothing. The void is silent. The energy fades. The blue light dims. The galaxy returns to darkness, one star at a time, like candles blown out. Vegeta stands there, fists clenched, jaw tight, breathing hard. The sweat on his skin is cold in the vacuum, sustained by ki, and his arms are shaking and his chest is heaving and he is alone in a way he has never been alone before, because the one person who made alone bearable is gone. He stands there for a long time. Then, so faint it could be imagined, so subtle it might be nothing at all, the stars around him pulse once, like a heartbeat. Not all the stars, just the ones closest to Vegeta. A tiny fluctuation in their luminosity, a microsecond variation in the light output of a handful of stellar bodies in a random galaxy in a random corner of Universe 7. The kind of fluctuation that astrophysicists would call noise, random, meaningless. Except it happens in rhythm, and the rhythm matches a heartbeat. And the heartbeat matches the rhythm of a man who used to put his hand on his chest to feel his own pulse when he was nervous before a fight, a habit he never knew he had. A habit that only one person in the universe ever noticed, because only one person in the universe ever watched him closely enough. The stars pulse. Once. Like a heartbeat. Like a grin. And somewhere in the lattice of reality, woven into the fabric of 18 universes, threaded through every star and every planet and every grain of sand on every world that has ever existed or will ever exist, somewhere in the living architecture that holds everything together, in the warm, stubborn, unbreakable framework that replaced the cold, crumbling, mechanical scaffold that came before. Goku grins. Vegeta feels it. He doesn't have the senses to feel it. No mortal does. No god does. The signal is too deep, too structural, too woven into the substrate of reality to be perceived by anything that exists within reality, but the seed in his ki does. The fragment of Goku that landed in his chest days ago, the warmth he couldn't explain, the almost smile he couldn't account for, the seed resonates, buzzes, hums, and Vegeta stands in the empty galaxy, fists still clenched, jaw still tight, and knows. He knows. His rival is out there, woven into everything, listening, grinning, waiting. Vegeta unclenches his fists. Slowly, deliberately. He powers up again. Not the explosive galaxy-lighting scream of a moment ago. A quiet power-up, controlled. The kind of power-up that isn't about force, it's about promise. The promise of a man who intends to get stronger, who intends to push further, who intends to stand in this exact spot, in this exact galaxy, and issue this exact challenge again and again and again until the distance between them closes and the stars pulse twice instead of once. The stars are still. I'll always be back. 100 years later, real time, a planet in Universe 6, remote, uncharted. The kind of planet that doesn't appear in any database because no one has ever had a reason to catalog it. A green, quiet world orbiting a yellow star in a spiral arm of a galaxy that hasn't produced anything noteworthy in its entire history. A child is born. The birth is normal, routine. A mortal species with no divine blood, no Saiyan heritage, no connection to any known lineage of warriors or gods or cosmic anomalies. The parents are ordinary. The village is ordinary. The planet is ordinary. The attending healer notices something. The baby's heartbeat is synced with the planet's rotation. Perfectly synced. Not approximately, exactly. Each beat of the tiny heart corresponds precisely to the planetary rotation, as if the world itself is keeping rhythm for this child. As if the planet, or something in the planet, something woven through the planet's mass and gravitational field and structural foundations, is humming a lullaby that only this child can hear. The healer frowns, checks her instruments. Checks again. The readings are impossible. She files them as a calibration error and doesn't mention them to anyone. The baby opens its eyes. Black. Deep black. Void black. The black of a sealed dimension, of a chamber that was once a prison and became a home, of the space between stars where a man once stood and became everything. 10,000 light years away, inside the hyperbolic time chamber, in the pocket dimension that still smells like bad key-constructed cooking, at the table that still has 5 places set and 2 empty. Reku opens his eyes. At the exact same moment, the void around him shifts, the air warms, the river sounds different, clearer, sharper, more real than it has in a century. The sky, the 2 turquoise sky that Goku's last gift deepened to almost right, flickers, and for 1 second the sky is perfect. The exact blue of Earth on a clear afternoon. The exact shade that Goku spent decades trying to recreate and never quite managed. Reku looks up at the perfect sky, and the golden being who was born as a shadow and chose his own name and stayed in the void because it was his home, the last person in existence who knew Goku as Goku, who fought him and laughed with him and said goodbye by a river and meant it. Reku smiles. Took you long enough, old man. Y'all, I don't really know what to say here. I've been writing this story for weeks, and I've been living in it for months, and I'm sitting here at my desk staring at the screen, and I just wrote the ending, and I don't know what to say. So I'll say this. The story of what if Goku was locked inside the time chamber for 100 years was never about power. It was about people, about what happens when you take the most social, the most connected, the most relational fighter in anime and strip all of that away and leave him with nothing but himself. And it turns out that himself is a man who makes friends with ghosts and names his shadows and sets empty plates for people who aren't there and builds homes for people who have nowhere to go, and when given the choice between becoming a god and going home for rice, chooses both. Chooses the impossible 4th option that the math said didn't exist. He doesn't cheat the choice, he takes option 1. He becomes the lattice, he sacrifices everything, his body, his mind, his self, but he leaves seeds, fragments of himself too small to matter and too stubborn to die. And those seeds, those tiny, invisible, utterly insignificant motes of warmth, they land, they grow, they take root. In Vegeta's pride, in Gohan's courage, in Goten's rice, in Chi-Chi's garden, in a shadow sky, in an angel's palm. Goku doesn't beat the system. He doesn't overpower the architect. He doesn't break the rules. He just refuses to let go. And the multiverse, which was held together for billions of years by mechanical scaffolding and a tired angel's lonely maintenance, the multiverse is now held together by love. Not metaphorically, literally, structurally. The love of a man who set an empty plate at a table inside a void for 70 years because he wanted Chi-Chi to have a seat when she got there. That's the lattice now. That's what holds everything up. If that's not the most Son Goku thing I've ever written, I don't know what is. Thank you for watching this, all of it. Every arc, every lore dump, every fight scene, every quiet moment by the river. Thank you for caring about Aethon and Seraphiel and Reku and Vorath and all the OCs I poured my heart into. Thank you for sitting through my tangents and my commentary and my occasional inability to keep my emotions out of the narrator's voice. This one was special to me. I hope it was special to you too. Drop your thoughts. Tell me what hit. Tell me what missed. Tell me if the ending landed, or if you wanted something different, or if you're just sitting there staring at the screen the way I am right now. And if nothing else, if all of this was just a story, just a what if, just a thought experiment about an anime character in a white room, remember the plate. Remember the rice. Remember that the door opens when you no longer wish to leave. Peace.